Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, so in this video, Alvin and I will be giving you our takes on what we believe the best case is for Republicans going into the 2024 Senate elections.
Yep, that's right. So this is the map for the 2024 Senate elections, a very favorable map for Republicans here. As you can see, they start out at 47 very, very safe seats, and Democrats start out with 39 very, very safe seats. And obviously you need to get to 51 to control the chamber out of 100 or 50 with the presidency, which right now looks like about a toss-up. So you really want to get to 51 if possible to make sure you control the Senate. Now, we can also talk about how what we're doing for the best case scenario. So we're really looking at a top 5% scenario for Republicans uh, in a week or two, really. It's almost around the corner. We did a video for the Democrats where they easily took the chamber, but now we're going to be looking at Republicans in their best case.
Yes. And yeah, keep in mind top 5% scenario. Yeah, when you speak back to the Democratic videos, you say easily take back the chamber. I wouldn't say easily. They barely did it in our last video. But I think easily is what we're gonna see with the Republicans in this video. I don't know. Let's start with the safe states here. I think right off the bat, maybe let's do Nebraska. It's a solid red state. This is a bit of a it's a little bit more interesting this year because there's an independent running, not a Democrat, and he's definitely gained some traction against Deb Fischer, the Republican. Most of the polling here is internal, so you're going to see lots of the Osborne internals, who's the independent, his polls favoring him, and the Republican polls by Deb Fischer, her internal polls obviously favoring her. Um, yeah, obviously this race should not be close, but it is. But I think in a best case, I think there's this scenario has kind of played out before in 2022 when an independent ran against the Republican incumbent in Utah, and the Republican ended up winning by double digits. I can't see a scenario where the polling is just a bit off because Nebraska is not really a state that is polled too much, and we just see Deb Fischer as the incumbent like kind of sail to re-election, winning by like 13 points or something. That wouldn't necessarily surprise me. So I think we could feel safe putting this in solid.
Yeah, yeah. I did misspeak when I said easily. I meant to talk about this video as well. But anyways, when you do talk about Nebraska, the volatility here is really big, so that's why you're going to see that discrepancy between the two projections. We can also uh, probably just give Florida to the Republicans straight up. We did this in our presidential video as well, where Trump won Florida by over 10 in a best case for him. And I think it's going to be the same for Rick Scott. Um, Rick Scott is not a weak candidate. He's not particularly weak. He's not as strong as Rubio or DeSantis in the state, but yeah, Florida's been going right off a cliff. And while he's pulling around 4 to 5 points up, I think in a really good night for him, the amount of Republican registrations in the state is off the cliff, and he's going to be able to take this very easily.
Yep. Yeah, well, yeah, I definitely agree with Florida's trending the way it is. Yeah, there's definitely a reality where we see Florida going double digits to the right, and Rick Scott taking that quite easily. The next one actually would the next solid state actually puts Republicans over the top here with 50 seats, Montana. Um, so here we have a Democratic incumbent, John Tester, running against the Republican Tim Sheehy. Sheehy's been pretty easily outpolling Tester, and beating him in terms of the polls, winning by like high single digits in that polling data. I definitely can see like a reality, but I'm thinking just of 2018 elections where Democrats in more rural states were running and they just got swept by double digits. And these are Democratic incumbents. And I kind of feel that reality can repeat in 2024 here. And I definitely think it is in the realm of possibilities where Tester loses by double digits. It actually might be more likely than Tester winning in the state, honestly. So yeah, I think that is solid here too.
Yeah, I think the reason why we haven't gotten any polling for a few weeks is because the race is just about over and pollsters don't even want to come here anymore. And yeah, R plus 10 here are gonna be pretty easy. I think that does it on the Republican side for safe seats. We should probably go to the Democrat side here. And I think we could probably talk about Maryland. I don't know. What do you think?
Maryland is right on the edge for me. So Maryland, you have Angela Alsobrooks, the Democrat, running against Republican Larry Hogan, a former governor from the state. He's a more moderate Republican, more old school. Um, I guess he's an anti-Trump Republican also to some extent. But as we've seen in the polling, like Angela Alsobrooks, as she's gotten her name recognition up, as people learn about her in the state, she's just been shooting up in the polling. Like, and like that. Her averages are all in the double digits now. Um, honestly, I think the reality of this race is just going to be Alsobrooks winning by double digits. But there's maybe an outside shot that Hogan could get it to single digits. Like this was probably borderline in a best case for me. Uh, for Republicans, I think they're definitely losing this. But maybe in a best case, Hogan can like slash it down to like also Brooks only winning by 9. Um, so yeah, I mean we could put it in like yeah, I'd say likely Democratic
Yeah,
here.
I agree. I think the thing with Maryland I mean, the thing with the whole country is that it's so polarized. I can't see that many people splitting Harris and Hogan in Maryland. I think if it was an off year, Hogan would have a better chance, but because it's a presidential year, people are going to be going to the polls, Democrat voters in Maryland trying to vote for Kamala Harris, and they're going to want to give her a Democrat Senate as well to work with. I don't think Hogan's going to get that many ticket splitters despite being a former governor. So we'll put it there. And this is going to be the story for a lot of likely Democrat states. I think we can sort of just go to the neighbor here, Virginia.
Yeah,
And Virginia, initially it looked like Hung Cow, maybe in a best case would have this under 5. And in general, Republicans were optimistic about Virginia getting closer and maybe having a shot at Virginia in 2028, for example. But recently, once Harris jumped in the race, it seems like Virginia's sort of just drifted back to where we would have expected it to be, maybe a little to the right of the past, with, of course, Youngkin making headway here, Hung Cow being an overperformer electorally. But yeah, Tim Kaine is just leading the polling average by too much. He's an incumbent senator. We don't expect him to do that much worse than what the polls say. So maybe in a best case for Cal, he could get this to 8 or so on a good night in Virginia, but he can't really win this race. And maybe it's really the same thing in Minnesota and New Mexico with incumbent Democrat
yeah.
senators.
Yeah, we don't really talk about Minnesota that often, just because, yeah, Amy Klobuchar is the incumbent Democrat's widely expected to win. She's very popular in the state, and she's won in like practically landslide margins in her last elections. Um, yeah, I mean, New Mexico as a whole is like a close-ish state. It definitely leans blue. Um, but like on the presidential level, but yeah, and Klobuchar is almost sure to outrun that. Yeah, like I think in a best case for Republicans, um, they're not going to be able to win this, obviously. I think, but maybe they can get it to single digits and have Klobuchar only win by like 8 or 9, and then New Mexico, generally something similar. Heinrich is an incumbent. He's generally outperforming Harris. Yeah, I think in a best case for Republicans, maybe they can get him down to like a 6 or 7 point win, but he's going to win in the end.
Agreed. Looking at all these the three legacies just talked about, they're sort of Republican targets for the future. Like Virginia, obviously with Youngkin and the, state legislature being somewhat competitive for Republicans. Minnesota, Republicans want it to sort of go with the rest of the Rust Belt and shift to the right with the white working class. And New Mexico with the Hispanic shifts. These are sort of fronts that Republicans want to work to. later down the line in 2032 and et cetera, where it could be a swing state. But right now, it's just too far to the left, and it's going to be
Mm,
like this. So I think we could probably go to Texas right now,
yeah.
where Ted Cruz, he's been running a relatively weak race, and maybe that induced Kamala Harris to head there. Uh, I think tomorrow with Colin Allred to do a rally against Cruz. And maybe his seat is a little vulnerable. It looks like Allred has a shot for sure this time around. And I don't know, Cruz has been able to fend off challenges in bad years for Republicans such as 2018, but Texas has been shifting to the left. Either way, Cruz is going to win by a likely margin if Republicans have a top 5% night. I don't think he would underperform Trump by that much in a good night for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, yeah, and a good night for Republicans. Yeah, we could definitely see Ted Cruz winning by like 5 or 6 points. Yeah, maybe a smidge more, maybe even a smidge more than that. But yeah, generally, Texas is looking like it's going to be a decently close race this election. But yeah, I think yeah, in the best case, Ted Cruz got it.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to talk about Ohio? I think that's where we're going next, right?
Yeah, Ohio is an interesting one. We have a Democratic senator in Ohio, which is a more red state now. So Sherrod Brown's the incumbent Democrat in Ohio, which is a state which voted for Trump by 8-ish points. And he's Bernie Moreno is the Republican running against him. Um, yeah, I mean, the race is probably the closest of the Senate races right now. But yeah, so obviously, with that comes me saying, like in the best case for Republicans, of course they're going to win this race in Ohio here. Um, by a lean or likely margin, I'm not sure. I think in a best case, I personally for me, I would say, you'd only see Moreno winning by like 4-ish points. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think this is more of a lean race than a likely race. I mean, usually in these best case scenarios, I want to put it in the more Republican one just because it's the Republican best case video, obviously. But it looks like Sherrod Brown is just running too good of a race, and Ohio has demonstrated its ability to split ballots enough to the point where I think the margin here is sort of like D+3 to R+4 or something, and I don't think either candidate can win the state by that much. It's just such a close race. And maybe Moreno does really well in the race. He follows Trump by a lot. Trump gets him over 5, but I don't think that has that much of a shot of happening. And you see it in the same polls, although these polls are very outdated. Trump isn't winning Ohio by that much. He's sort of winning by like 8 or so, and Moreno would probably do worse than 3 points behind him. So
Hmm.
this is pretty valid. Yeah, so I think we should probably go to the rest of the Rust Belt here, maybe starting with Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. Maybe Wisconsin.
Yeah, let's go to Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin here. Eric Hovde has been running one of the better races. I mean, I'm hesitant to say that, but I think he's been running one of the better races for Republicans in the Senate, other than, of course, Sheehy in Montana. He's been sort of been the next man up after Sheehy and Moreno in the shot to get more Republicans in the Senate, sort of get this rhino-proof majority because Susan Collins has an election year in 2026. She might be a little shaky on some issues. Obviously, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, who's a moderate. So Republicans really want to get a more healthy majority. 53 or so seats would be pretty good with Mitt Romney going away. So 53 seats is sort of like what they want to get. And if you look at Wisconsin, it would be the 53rd seat, and in a best case, Hovde would take it. Hovde has been sort of narrowing the gap, sort of getting more name recognition as the race has gone along. And Wisconsin, historically, the polling hasn't been great, so there could be some more of a variation here. I think on a really good top 5% night, Hovde does win by more than 1%, although that would probably be only a 5 to 10% chance. I think if he is to win this race, it's going to be ultra tight and he's going to win by less than a point. But in a best case, he would be winning over one.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Like I'm thinking back to like 2022, like when, Ron Johnson won by a point. Um, obviously Tammy Baldwin is a much more the current Democrat in the seat is a much more formidable opponent than what that Republican faced. But yeah, I do think in a best case, we could potentially see how D replicate that. So yeah, that makes sense. Next I'd say we should go to Pennsylvania. Um, Here we have Bob Casey Jr., the Democrat, running against David McCormick, the Republican. I believe McCormick is he may be the best funded Republican running. You can fact check me on that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think it's him.
There's a lot
So
of
they're putting
money.
a lot of money into this race, for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, generally, Casey does seem like he is favored, but there's more recent polling showing this race getting really tight, and some more recent polls even putting McCormick up. So yes, I do think in an absolute best case, McCormick probably can take it. Um, I don't know, like I'm skeptical if he could get it over a point, but um, but yeah, I think he definitely wins in the Republican best case scenario.
Yeah, I also think it's he's not going to get over a point. Actually, just because of Bob Casey's history, he's just so strong. If you look at 2018, it was a blue wave year, obviously,
Hmm.
but he wins this race by 13 points over, admittedly a pretty weak Republican Lou Barletta. But Dave McCormick, he was a one-time, maybe even a two-time loser, and he's a little sketchy. I think with Republicans pouring, as much money as possible in Pennsylvania because it's the key race in the
Yeah.
presidential, it's key state in the presidential race, of course. Yeah, Trump could definitely win the state by 2 to 3 in a ultra good night for Trump, where Kamala Harris is poorly and drag Dave McCormick over the finish line, but it would be very close. Casey is really strong, and I originally thought this would be a Casey win by like 7 to 8, maybe a year ago. But as the race has gotten closer and closer to November, McCormick has been narrowing it up, and I'm going to give it to him in his best case. So
Yep.
tilt Republican, and I guess we can go to Michigan here.
Yes. So in Michigan, or do you want to talk about Michigan? I mean,
Yeah, I can talk about Michigan,
yeah,
and
you
then you
go
can
about it.
get yeah, you can go to the Sun Belt. Yeah, Michigan, Mike Rogers is running against Elisa Slotkin. And Elisa Slotkin is a very strong candidate for the Democrat side, very strong recruit from the House, and she is doing very well. Of course, this is Michigan, and it's going to be the Democrats' best state in the Rust Belt generally. And I don't really see too much evidence to say that will not be the case. I think the only real scare for Democrats is that they're losing the Arab American population there, but I don't think that's going to do that much damage. In general, Lisa Slotkin is heavily favored to win this race. Probably a 70 to 80% chance right now to win this race, maybe even higher.
Hmm.
And Harris is going to be favored to win the state by maybe 65, 70% as well. And at least Slotkin's going to do better than Kamala Harris. But in a really good night, obviously, Mike Rogers is going to sort of run alongside Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, where Republicans do really well among the white working class and don't lose too much support among the college educated white population. And he's going to take it too here.
Personally, I'm a bit more skeptical that Rodgers can win. I mean, I don't know. Of course, this is best case. It's all always a little bit fuzzy, but I don't know. I'm looking like even Republican like pollsters like Trafalgar like not being able to put McCormick. I'm sorry, Rodgers up. It makes me like kind of doubt it. But I mean, of course, this is you're the Republican here, so this is your best case. As your like, I'll let your rating shine through.
All right, where do you want to go? Nevada? Yeah,
Uh,
probably go Arizona. I think you should
yeah,
go
I'd say
Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Arizona, we have Ruben Gallego, a representative running against Kerry Lake. Um, yeah, so a very MAGA influencer in Kerry Lake here. She ran for governor in 2022 and lost barely. But the polling here has been pretty decisive. Gallego is pretty much destroying Lake in the polling by like 6, 7, some like even some polls show him up even double digits, which I find pretty crazy. And he's outrunning Harris by a lot, almost every poll. Um, Personally, I think even in a best case for Republicans, I don't think they're holding Arizona here. I just think this gap is getting too wide. And he's like I carry and I think something else that's very notable here is Republicans on national Republicans aren't really funding Carrie Lake as much as their other Senate candidates. They're kind of like triaging her. They're abandoning her a bit here. And I think this just goes to shows. I think even in a best case, Democrats are probably taking this. I would say like lean even like by a point. I think is the absolute best for me.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead here and say that I'm gonna put this in tilt Democrat.
Okay.
And the reasoning I'm gonna put for this is that I think in a best case for Republicans, they actually, I don't know, they might win this seat. They might. But it would have to be an extraordinary night for Carrie Lake, and you're starting to convince me that she does not have a chance to win the seat. Because if you look at polls, Trump is winning these exact same pollsters, like 80% of these pollsters. If you actually look at it, Trump is doing extremely well in Arizona. It's his best state right now, and that's reflected in every single measure, including the polling, including the betting odds, including forecasts everywhere. Arizona is the most swing state leaning Republican on the presidential level. And these polls that have Trump up by 3, 4, 5 have Gallego up by 5 to 10 points, sometimes even more than 10 points, which is, dramatic. And I think that Gallego is going to win this race at this point for sure. The margin in a best case, okay, maybe Trump wins the state by 3 to 4 points in a really, really good night, and Carrie Lake, loses the state by one. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. And honestly, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on Nevada first. So why don't you just talk about Nevada anyway?
Okay. Yeah, so Nevada we got an interesting scenario here. So Jackie Rosen, the incumbent Democrat, is running against Sam Brown, an Army veteran, for the Republicans. And this race is interesting because I mean, Nevada's a really, really close state in terms of polling. Harris and Trump are running even. But Jackie Rosen is consistently outrunning Harris by a lot. Like the 538 average, for example, I think has her up like 8. As you can see here, yeah, in a wave of polls, she's just leading them all. And again, similar situation to Gallego. Some of these polls, she's leading by double digits. Trafalgar, for example, even right-wing polling puts her up like a pretty good amount, like 4 or 5. Um, so yeah, I mean, Rose is definitely favored going into this. Um, and Something else that's notable, and this is similar to the Lake situation. Republicans weren't really funding Brown relative to other Senate candidates in more competitive races. So it seemed like, and I say seemed passes, and I'll get to that, that they were kind of abandoning the race to some extent. But I mean, just today, like we got this information today, Republicans are starting to put more money in Nevada in part because of they're getting really good results in terms of the early vote, like in terms of registered voters and like what percentage of the registered voters are Republicans and stuff. So there's that tidbit of information also. But I mean, personally, I think there's enough of a gap that even in a best case, Rosen has it locked. Just because I feel that turnout advantage for Republicans is going to matter more for the presidential race than for this race, just because that gap is pretty insane, and it has not really been showing signs of closing. That's my take. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I think tilt Democrat is actually fair here. Maybe Sam Brown has a 5% chance of winning the state, but again, the vote splitting in the polls is so dramatic. And, I wasn't really optimistic for Trump even in Nevada, maybe a week ago. But now that we have real votes coming in from Nevada, and I think you wanted to mention this too earlier. You said about how most of Nevada's votes, like a big majority, an overwhelming majority of Nevada's
Yeah.
votes are cast early or by mail, not on election day. Very few people in Nevada actually cast their vote on election day. And, it's pretty crazy because, in general, Republicans are going to win the election day vote in almost every single state. Maybe not Vermont, but most states across the nation that are relevant, Republicans are going to win the election day vote. And yet, they're currently winning the mail-in and early in-person votes by registration. Of course, we don't know the actual returns, maybe
Yeah.
it's probably more likely right now that more Republicans are voting for, for example, Kamala Harris than Democrats are voting for Trump, maybe a percent or two. But still, Republicans are up. And Democrats would need the independents to break at a very good margin. I think Ralston put it around 10%. He's a very good forecaster in Nevada, like 10% break among indies for Democrats for them to have a shot at the presidential level. I don't know if that's going to happen. That seems a tough ask. Maybe things will narrow up and Harris will have a better shot. And maybe right now I would say Trump's up in Nevada for some reason, even though the polling doesn't suggest that. But in terms of the Senate level, I mean, I think Rosen's definitely going to get 10% of independent, when it depends by over 10%. She's
Yeah,
an
she has a good
incumbent
shot doing
senator.
that.
She's an incumbent senator. And because of that, I think some of these Republicans are going to be more inclined to split their tickets to Trump Rosen. Sam Brown's an unknown candidate, and even though he does have a good story behind him, Rosen is already a senator, and you have that incumbent next to your name on the ballot. People like familiarity; they're going to vote for you, and so we saw this again on the Senate level in terms of in 2022, right? Like you had incumbent Senator Cortez Masto win that, and that just shows, it's the same thing with incumbency advantage in Nevada. She's going to win the state even in a best case Republican scenario. 55 seats for the Republicans, 45 seats for the Democrats, with 4 seats sort of tilting on the edge. But even if you give all of these states, every single lean or tilt state here for the Democrat Party, Republicans still take the Senate at 51 seats. So that just shows how
Yeah.
favorable the map it is for Republicans. Democrats have to sweep the board and take either Montana or Texas, which just looks so difficult right now. Um, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're going to Texas tomorrow.
And I just want to remind our viewers, again, I do this for all these. For these kind of videos with the best case, this is our best case. This is our best case. This is the top 5% of scenarios. This isn't our actual prediction. Please feel free to go check that out. If you want to see the best case for Democrats, it's already out. Go look at that. And yeah, I mean, our final predictions they're gonna be coming out soon. Like the election's closing in.
Yeah, final predictions for Senate, I would even argue, are likely in a week because you sort of got to build it up. It's going to probably be, maybe like Saturday or Sunday before Election Day. The Senate video is probably going to be our final Senate projections, which shouldn't look too different from our original Senate predictions like this month. Not that much has changed. So, it's probably going to be around the same, but do subscribe to check that out. And yeah, this is it. A rhino proof majority for Republicans at 55 on their best case. They really want to get to 53 plus if possible and build on their Senate majority to hopefully for them lock up the Senate for years to come because in the future there's going to be more. The other two cycles are more Democrat favorable in the Senate, and this is the best one for Republicans. So that's about it. Leave a like on this video down below. Comment down below how many seats you think Republicans will get in their top 5% scenario. Do you think they will take Nevada and Arizona as well for 57 seats? And subscribe to the channel for our normal projections coming very soon. Ring that bell and share this video with your family and friends. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.